Ladies and gentlemen, I can't even say welcome back because it has been probably close to, if not over a year since I've done one of these segments. But this is Natty News Daily Weekly, my weekly segment where I update you guys on kind of like pop culture, the current news of the week. And yeah, we're going to dive right into it because there's a couple articles I want to talk about, a couple athletes I want to talk about. And I just want to get this segment rolling again. You guys seem to enjoy it. We got a little bit busy, we got a little sidetracked with a couple other things going on. But we are back and we're going to try and make this one stick again, right? So if you're not already following Natty News Daily, you've got the page up there. We appreciate our 33, almost 34,000 followers. And, some of what I'm going to cover has already been shown on the page, but you can see obviously all the amazing athletes that we like to highlight. The first thing I'm going to talk about today is our most recent post because when I saw this, when Leroy posted this, I mean, you can see my my reaction there. It was an audible what the fuck because what the fuck, right? I mean, this is an incredible athlete, right? So PAX, I'm going to go right to their page, pushing it to the PAX. If you're not already following, you probably should be. Seems like a lot of people are already 118. This is the first time I've seen this athlete, though. Uh, you want to talk about when genetics meets hard work. I scrolled a very, 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 very long time on their page, and it's just hard work, heavy weights, dedication, consistency, all the way back to days of competitive CrossFit where they were moving some serious weight, even with that, weighted pull ups, heavy cleans, all that crazy stuff. I mean, but the structure here is just absolutely phenomenal. So I will be very interested to find out when they intend to compete, where that will be, um, as long as conditioning is matched. And even if conditioning is not perfect, this is a pretty unstoppable physique, right? So this is very exciting. And this is not just one photo, right? You can scroll and scroll and scroll, and this is not mirrors and angles. This is a solid wall of mass, right? So congratulations. I don't want to say you've hit the lottery because that kind of downplays how much hard work probably went into, or definitely went into building this physique. But this is going to be, should they intend to have a long career in the sport of natural bodybuilding, it will be a very successful one, right? Without a doubt, absolutely without a doubt. So I won't spend a ton of time on this. I had to give them their flowers, and yeah, we'll move on from that one because I could just ramble for a long period of time there, right? The second thing I want to talk about today, this one we got just two topics I wanted to go over. Um, Tony here. This is not an attack I wanted before because I know sometimes these segments come across as like I'm going after somebody. So Tony was recently elected the president of the USBF, USBSF being a domestic US based natural bodybuilding federation, kind of one of the old guard. Jack Halverson was the prior president. Tony and Courtney came in, from my understanding, through the Natty Revolution when those two, I don't want to say merged because they kind of coexisted there for a bit. But now Tony's in charge of the USBF, and he put out this post, which I would encourage you guys, obviously, give Tony a follow. I should myself, right? This is actually on my business page. That's why I don't. Um, I follow him personally. Uh, give him a follow. Watch this reel. He talks about some of the updates for the USBF for this upcoming year. So if you're a US based athlete in the Midwest or the East Coast, especially, because that's kind of where their hub is, they've changed up some of the rules. And I want to talk about those rules because I think they're a little controversial. I'm not sure personally how I feel about them. I understand the logic. I listen to this, right? I get where maybe they're coming from, trying to be a little bit more inclusive of certain groups of people, trying to not limit the ability to compete for certain groups of people. But we're on a slippery slope, I feel like, right? So I'm gonna jump right into it because if we go to the website, usbfbodybuilding.com, banned substances, this is where the rule changes really kind of kicked off. And you can read through all of this. I have a document pulled up that's their exact protocol from their website, and we're going to talk, right? So you can see here, right? This is the typical stuff. Urine, they do pretty, they're known for having good testing, controlling their testing, like good protocols and systems in place so that the actual submissions are done the way they should be. They have their, minimum of 1 year up to lifetime ban, depending on the severity, right? They take this seriously, which is why I'm curious to hear more about the reasoning for some of these changes, right? Because if I pull this document up, this is from their website, effective January 1st, 2026, right? To all USBF sanctioned athletes, events, and divisions. USBF is committed to being a lifetime natural bodybuilding federation, right? Not you took stuff a little bit ago and now you can come compete with us, 3 years later or something like that. They repeat it, lifetime natural status for all competitors. However, I feel like there should be an asterisk on lifetime now because, and they go through, your typical stuff like PEDs, growth, all that is, disqualification. Specific to the Masters division, they are now allowing TRT. Now, what I will say is, luckily, their Masters division at least is at 40 years of age. But I would argue that there are some very, very strong competitive athletes that are of a master's age that could be placing top three, top five in any world's category and have. And not just like worlds the show, like worlds level international championship across the board. There's some very talented athletes that are at this age. If those people go on TRT, that just kind of like opens the gate for even more progression. Now they put some clarifiers on this, which I like at least, right? If you're going to do something like this, you have to limit it so people aren't going through the loopholes and kind of like sneaking through the cracks here, right? If you are going to be on TRT, it is exclusive to the Masters division. You can no longer compete in the open category, right? And that is right here. May never compete in open or non-Masters divisions. Okay, so they're limiting you to that age category. There's justification for that. I understand that completely. Competing outside, automatic disqualification, right? You have to have a TUE. I get that as well. It's just it to me, and you have to be clinically documented, right? You can't just jump on because you want to and you go to a wellness clinic or anything like that. It has to be truly medically diagnosed. So they're putting some restrictions on this for sure to try and safeguard kind of like the sanctity of the natural bodybuilding. And they also state, it's not in the document here, but I believe in Israel, he said they're still going to be testing for the ratio to be under six, right? I forget the exact verbiage of all that, but like 6 to 1 or whatever, you guys know what ratio I'm talking about. So they're putting a restriction on how high your test can be. They're putting a restriction on who can take it. They're putting a restriction, you have to be medically diagnosed. You can't just take it because you say you're older and you want to. But I just still feel like this opens the gate that I don't think needs to be open, right? If you're a master's level competitor competing exclusively in masters, I don't know. I don't know. It feels a little bit off to me. Now, I understand that at that age, there's probably individuals that want to take it for health reasons, quality of life reasons, and maybe they still want to compete and like this is who that's for. I totally get that. Like that is the ideal situation. It's the person who's been lifetime natural their whole life. They're dedicated to being natural, but they're seeing their health decline like on a medical basis, but they don't want to hang up the trunks and give up, and they don't want to compete in the NPC, right? So it's trying to keep people in a truly natural federation and not force them to go that route. I understand that. And it's trying to make sure that they are valuing the health of their athletes for those that potentially have negative health outcomes from low testosterone. So, like, justifiable. Again, I still just don't. It just feels a little icky, right? And that's where I'll leave it. Obviously, I want to hear your guys' input, your comments, and this is not. Let's not make it personal. People that take TRT are not bad people, right? Everyone has their reasons. It's their body; they can do whatever they want with it. Beyond just like I, as a healthcare practitioner, want the best health for my clients, and there are very documented reasons for this in specific cases. But yeah, just in the context of the sport, it just scratches me the wrong way a little bit, right? So I'll get off of that a little bit. There are other rules that I wanted to talk to. Peptides. Hot topic, very hot topic for a number of different reasons. Now, this is the first time in a natural federation I've heard BPC talked about. I'm going to come back to that. GLP-1s are like all anyone wants to talk about right now. And a lot of federations have come out and said, like, nope, that's not natural. No way, we're not doing it. USBF is taking a different approach. Similar to the TUE for testosterone, they're allowing GLP-1 receptor agonists for I'm not sure if that should be agonist or antagonist. Again, I'm not sure exactly. Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. GLP-1s for athletes with documented medical diagnosis, type 2 diabetes. They hold the TUE, it's prescribed by a physician, and they're undergoing treatment for that, right? Prohibited when intended for fat loss or physique enhancement, competitive advantage, non-medical or cosmetic purposes. My my gripe with this is that fat loss is the real purpose for this, right? Specific to type 2 diabetes. Yes, it's helping you manage your blood sugars, but one of the best treatments for type 2 diabetes is to chronically lose weight, to become a lighter human being, lose body fat, take stress off the system, and that in itself will also help with blood sugar regulation, right? So it's again, I see the reason they don't want to exclude individuals with type 2 diabetes that need this to help maintain safe levels so that they are not developing chronic issues from chronically elevated high blood sugar. And you guys can look into those. That's, numerous terrible side effects from chronic elevated blood sugar. But again, it's one of those where like it's only going to affect a very small number of people, I am sure. So this is not a large whole scale issue because they've done the right thing by putting in these clarifiers, restricting it to a small population. It just, again, it kind of like opens that door where are some people going to try and take advantage of it? Will they be able to take advantage of it? Are Tony and Courtney and the rest of their crew going to be able to kind of like nip this in the bud and say like, no, you are abusing this system that we tried to put in place to help this minority of the population, and that's kind of where that is, right? And then already we kind of noticed it. The BPC, this one, I'm gonna just say I outright don't agree with this. As a healthcare practitioner, as a physical therapist, like I'm fully aware that a lot of people use this for its tissue regenerative or healing properties. Um, in my opinion, right, it is true. It is not anabolic in nature. It's not associated with muscle growth or performance enhancement. There's also a lot of other things on the WADA list that are also not directly performance enhancement as well, but are banned as well, right? It's also not FDA approved. Don't love that, right? You could go like whole big conspiracy theory on FDA and big government, and we're going to stay away from that. My concern is this potentially allows individuals to be somewhat abusive to their bodies, to use volumes that they naturally could not handle, and to recover from those because of the administration of this peptide, which is allowing for tissue repair beyond their natural capacity to do so. And we know from the literature there's a correlation with increased volume and increased muscle growth. So indirectly, it could be causing muscle growth because it's allowing people to do things that they otherwise would not be able to do. So this one, I will say, I'm going to stick my flag in this. I do not like this rule. I think this is just allowing people to do things that they naturally would not be able to do, which will cause an advantage over a long period of time for sure, but still it's an advantage that other people might not have. And that's where I'm going to end this segment, right? So a lot to think about. Again, this is specific to the USBF. Lots of other federations have their own rules, and that's where you really do need to be very aware of the rules and regulations of every federation that you're competing with because they do vary wildly. And that comes down to the testing, what they are actually testing for, how comprehensive their panel is, do they polygraph, do they only do urine? Do they do bloods? Do they do off-season testing? It goes to the posing, it goes to the criteria, the whole thing. So really, you have to be an educated athlete in this sport. And if you don't know, go to the website, ask the promoters, right? Do your due diligence. That way, you are fully, advised on what you're getting into when you sign up to compete for a show because it's expensive, right? You don't want to come in unprepared and unknowingly, do something you weren't supposed to do or be competing against people that maybe like ethically and morally, you don't agree with some of the things they've done. And that's your decision as an athlete to go where you want to go, right? So if you guys like this, I would appreciate the likes, the comments, the shares, all that. And obviously, I'm very interested to hear what our demographic, our population, our following has to say about these rules. But let's keep it polite. Let's keep it respectful and civil in the comment section. I know that's hard to do nowadays, but let's look at this objectively instead of subjectively, right? All right. I'll see you guys in the next one.